Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us again on another episode of Dr. Rodney Unmasked and Inspired with my wife, Patricia. We have been thinking about, in fact, talking about some of the things that we wanted to share with you today. And one of the things that have come up in our conversations over and over again is timing, time and planning. And that's the thing that we want to kind of share our thoughts on today. Um, we have some differences in the way we see planning and time in that process of how we get things done. And 6 months in, we're almost 3 years as a couple. We're almost 3 years together. So we've been making some big adjustments. And I'm just going to let Patricia start out with some thoughts about it, and then I'll follow up.
I'm just going to say the first time that we recognized that we looked at time and planning differently was when we went on vacation for the first time together. It was about, I guess, a year after dating.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I wanted to plan everything out. I wanted to list out what we were going to do. We were going to be gone for 2.5 weeks, and how are we going to spend our time? And I remember Rodney's response was like, "Do we really need to plan stuff out? We know we're going to go to Phoenix, Arizona, to the Grand Canyon, to Las Vegas, to
We're going to explore
Lake
the
Tahoe."
Southwest. That's right. We're going to explore the Southwest. That was the thing.
Yeah, and my attitude was, what are we going to do when we get there? And I like to do professional tours, and I like to really learn about the area with a plan. And tell them how you reacted.
So I'm a kind of an adventurer, explorer, and just put me in a car, give me some landscape, and I'm ready to explore. Let's let things flow. Planning, yeah, we're going to plan our flight. We're going to plan where we're going to stay.
Yes.
But after that, everything in between, we're just going to go with the flow.
So you can see how we both have a difference of how that's supposed to work. And of course, the type of response that I had was a little bit of frustration. I'll be honest.
A little bit. Yeah.
And so I began to take control of the outcome. Yeah. And, as we've had discussions, we try to dig down into where did that come from?
Yeah.
And one of the things that was really neat is a friend of ours that was actually on part of our vacation with us. She recalled we worked together in the corporate world and how structured we were and how planned we were. Mm-hmm. And if we were doing something, we had a process and we had a plan. And you didn't come unprepared. And so I didn't realize how deeply rooted that became as part of who I am. 35 years working in the corporate world, I was not I'm going to say on a scale of 1 to 10, I wasn't even a 10. I was not the best planner. So people that know me would say, don't let Pat plan all the details. However, when I'm with I'm going to say an entrepreneur, somebody who
has owned their own time since 23 years old.
I look like a 10.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But what's been interesting, when we first recognized that we have this different way of seeing time and planning, to me, it's all a plan. I like the flexibility, being able to say, okay, well, we've planned thus far. We've planned certain kind of actions, activities, and now let's kind of go with the flow. That means if we had planned to get up and eat breakfast at 8 o'clock, if I wake up at 8:30 and eat breakfast during a vacation, everything should just be cool, right? Because we are on vacation. And by very definition, for me, vacation means I am free.
And I would wake up.
Yes.
Because I needed time to get together, right? And he'd say, let's just slip on something and go downstairs around 8 o'clock. So 8 o'clock didn't mean 8 o'clock. It meant whenever.
Not during vacation. It shouldn't mean anything but roundabout.
Yes. So I'm going to say the moral of the story is.
We get into the moral of the story
I
already?
call it lack of planning, and we get. He calls it flow. And what I've learned is the flow does make me a bit uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I get that. And I get that she needs certain outcomes. And I understand now by way, that conversation that we had in that kitchen in Arizona with your companion, and your corporate companion, gave me insight as to what kind of training you all have been, exposed to. So your exposure to certain kinds of time management training has geared your life in that way. And you weren't even a full year outside of retirement. So all of that was still happening inside of her. That internal clock was still going off. No matter how we talked, that internal time clock would get her flip a switch. And if something wasn't right, I'd see her get frustrated. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know how to deal with that because I had no idea where that was coming from. And then we started to unpack based on that conversation we had in that kitchen in Arizona. I had no idea. I've never been exposed to that kind of time management training. And I now clearly understand that I need to not just be a person that's into planning, but also understand that my partner needs certain time parameters, and she also needs certain way of thinking about our process. And I'm okay with that.
And you guys would be proud of us because the next vacation that we took, we did a combination of planning. So we had some specific, I would say, tours in the places that we were going to in Europe. And we had some open free time to flow.
Yes.
Because I also realized that Rodney needed that freedom.
Yeah.
And I tried my best not to say, what time is it? Where are we supposed to be?
Right. I appreciate that so much, babe. I really do.
I'm glad you appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yes.
But what I've come to appreciate even more is that relationships are meant to stretch you. There's always going to be conflicts in relationships in terms of what we've been exposed to, how we think about what our philosophical positioning is in life. I think the biggest thing is being able to talk about it, being able to make our expressions without offending the other person, right? Because I'm very proud of my wife. I'm extremely proud of who she is and what God has given her, the gifts that she has and the capacities to carry certain kinds of strategic ways of planning. That works for us, in a great deal. So I'm visionary. That's the other side of this. I'm visionary, and I have a tendency of seeing the vision, creating the process. And oftentimes my process is done in silos, right? I think about it, and because most every situation I've been in, I would say the majority of the companies I've been involved in or businesses I've been in, even as a pastor, I share my thoughts about what we're going to do, and people, have questions and we talk about it, but I'm pretty efficient at onboarding people with where we're going. And at the same time, knowing someone like Pat is going to help me to unpack more of the detailed stuff. because I'm not necessarily detailed oriented. I'm strategic. I am vision oriented and moving us incrementally towards that vision.
And let me just say, I'm not detail oriented either.
You're more detailed than me.
But
Yes, for sure.
right, on the spectrum of 1
yeah.
to 10, I might be more of a 5. But
Okay.
what I will say is, if I buy into your vision,
yeah,
I can start the makings of a plan around that vision.
Right.
And I try to surround myself with people that are more detailed oriented, that can fill in all of the blanks.
Yeah.
Truly, truly unmasking, because that's what this podcast is about. Doing something that is not your usual, me flowing to something and not having a plan. In my mind, having a good plan,
not clear enough
plan, makes me uncomfortable, and it makes me vulnerable to feeling like I'm going to fail, and I don't want to feel like a failure. And so getting in touch with that for me was probably one of the biggest things, and really understanding that I'm not a failure if I don't have a plan. What, just release and flow, and I can still get something out of it.
Yeah, and thanks for that. I think part of my journey has been realizing that you don't need to be the smartest person in the room. In fact, that could be a detriment to you when you don't have people that challenge you and ask you to think a different way, and being open to that. Because if you've been leading all the time and very few times you're being challenged by a different way of doing things, it can get you in creating a lot of error. And I don't want that. But it happens. And so having a smart wife and someone who will challenge some of the things that I say, and also require that I give her clarity, is absolutely such an important part of my growth, my personal growth, and our growth together, because she sees me as her husband. She sees me as her pastor. That's fine. But she sees me as her partner as well. And that is key, right? Because in any given situation, married, unmarried, if you have someone significant in your life, you should be able to rely on them as a partner, right? And say what you need to say as a partner. And that's important. So God has blessed me, and I teach Pat a lot. I say, when she gets on my nerve, and we both get on each other's nerves, right? I repeat the scripture: he that finds a wife finds a good thing and finds favor from God. I repeat that, and next thing you know, she's laughing at me, and we're laughing and going back and forth, because we know that this journey we've chosen to be on this journey together, and we're growing in this journey. We're challenging each other in this journey. We're also making sure that we are being the kind of sounding board that we need to be.
Yes, and whether planned or flowing, we're choosing to be happy and having joy.
Yeah, and I think that's the part of being in our 60s, right? Where you know that God has given you this opportunity to really fully engage life without having any regrets of the past, just living in the moments, and also bearing witness to the fact that you still can grow and learn together.
Yes.
And that's very powerful. Can I say one thing I want to say? When we were taking off for the Southwest, we were going to, this is the vacation we started our journey with in our conversation. I said to Pat the night before, I said, Pat, we are not going to get all stressed out about being at the airport way too early, right? We're not going to miss the plane. And she was like, yeah, no problem. And we like to go into our, we get a chance, we go into one of the lounges, and we sit and have breakfast and whatever, drink some coffee, and just sit and chat and relax a bit. And that is her pattern. Before she gets on a plane, she's got to be there a couple hours ahead, chill, that kind of thing.
No rushing.
No rushing.
No running through the airport,
right.
trying to get a flight.
Right.
Yeah.
But man, the energy shift that happens when it's time to travel, it is absolutely amazing that she converts. And I guess that's part of the post-traumatic stress of traveling around the world, right?
Yes, because I missed the flight before. And I said that will not happen again, at least not on my accord, because of me getting to the airport late.
Right.
And so Rodney has to bear the brunt of that.
Oh my God.
Because now I'm like, I'm 2 hours early.
My God.
It's not going to be my fault. If there's traffic on the way, right. I anticipate, I plan it. I plan for the fact that it could be traffic.
Right, right.
And he'll say, it will get there on time.
Yes.
Just go with the flow. And I'm like, nah, it's not going to happen.
Right.
It's 2 hours ahead of time.
Yes. And so it was a huge adjustment, but I've adjusted to that. I realized that she has certain experiences that I have to live with, and I also have to process with her, because
and the processing helps around where did that come from? What is the fear that I have as I travel to the airport, as I start to get ready? What's going on with me?
Yeah.
And what's going on with me is I don't want to miss the flight. And so, because I experienced that.
Right.
And I know how it feels.
How many times did you experience it?
More than once.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought
it was due to traffic, not leaving in enough time, getting lost on the way to the airport.
Okay.
You know, things like that.
Okay. I thought it was only one time. You were going to China or something and missed the plane.
Oh, that was due to the airline.
Oh, okay.
But the things that I feel like I can control, I like to control. And my learning there is I can't always control everything. I could try my best, but I can't control everything.
Oh, I love you so much. So our experiences, and when I travel, I've never missed a flight. I've always kind of gotten where I was going to go. And
you have faith.
Yeah, well,
that's what you have.
Yeah, I make application of faith, but also I realized too, and I told Pat this, I told Pat about a situation my uncle shared with me as a Marine, right? He had enlisted, he's now passed. My uncle, Steve, is now passed, but he shared something with me a long time ago, and it registers with me today. And sometimes you might be thinking about something a loved one or significant other has shared with you that kind of sticks with you about how fate works and how God has you here for a purpose. He shared this with me. He was a teenager coming out of high school, and he decided to enlist in the Army, went through the physical, was drafted, and when he got to the airport, his crew of people or core of people, he said it was a lot of guys. We're all getting on the same plane, going to California for boot camp training. And he told me that out of all those guys, they could not find his paperwork. They couldn't find his paperwork at all. And so they detained him. The flight went off, and what he shared with me changed my life forever. And I want you to think about this as well, because life has a flow. There is a destiny. There is a God, and you're here for a purpose, no matter what you are going through. What he told me was that plane that he was supposed to be on, it crashed, killing every one of those individuals. And so that stuck with me. I know that we all have a timeline. We all have something that we're meant to do in this life. And I hope and pray that you find that place. But I also hope and pray this, that you understand that you are entitled to live your authentic life. In living an authentic life, what we have found, Pat and I have found, is that being vulnerable is not a weakness. We don't have to put on disguise to live and be. We can be who we are with flaws and all, whoever counts your flaws against you. But know this, that you have the capacity to be yourself and to be all that you can be, and also welcome the opportunities to learn and grow, like Pat and I. Mm-hmm. We're welcoming that opportunity. Yeah. So if you enjoy our broadcast, we're going to ask you to subscribe. If you haven't subscribed yet, what you waiting for? We're going to be getting into some really good stuff. We have some really good themes. Pat and I will be coming back and forth, and I have some new content on the cutting room floor that we're going to be talking about Black men and healthy community, and what does it mean to have a healthy community for men, particularly in times like this. We're going to have a number of people, guests, that will be coming and bringing life-giving, life-nurturing, life-flowing conversations, because it'll be authentic and it will be intentional, that we can be ourselves and open up and allow the light that is within us to shine. So we're asking you to share this information, share it with your friends and family, get them on board. You can join us at Dr. Rodney Unmasked on Facebook as well. Come in, we can talk about some of the things that you're learning here, some of the things that you'd like for us to talk about. We're open to themes that you might want to present to us so that we can share with you from a perspective that is just raw.
Okay.
So thank you all for your time, and we're looking forward to spending time with you here on this podcast. Dr. Rodney Unmasked.
Thank you.
And Inspired. God bless you.